Few people could have known what would happen when Pickleweed first got on Troy Landry's boat. She was young, short, and holding a pink gun case. She didn't look like a future Bayou legend, she looked more like a visitor, but the water doesn't care about how things look, and Pickle didn't either. After that, there were huge alligators, terrible storms, close calls with death, and many other jaw-dropping events. She quickly showed that she wasn't just going along for the ride. Something changed, though, just as she was becoming the face of the swamp. All of a sudden, every fan asked the same thing. What did Picklewheat really do? We need to go back to the beginning to understand that. Picklewheat, whose real name is Cheyenne Nicole Wheat and was born on September 21, 1995 in Poydras, St. Bernard Parish, Louisiana, is a real gator hunter who comes from a long line of proud shooters. As a fourth-generation alligator hunter, the Louisiana rivers, swamps, and bayous were more than just pretty scenery for her. They were her playground. The fact that she is Isleño makes her past even more unique. The Isleños are descended from people who came to Louisiana from the Canary Islands in the 1700s. They brought their own language, culture, and deep knowledge of nature with them. That history still lives on in the area and shapes people like Pickles. Pickle grew up in a close-knit family that loved being outside. She and her brother Cody both had a deep love for nature that came from their parents, Eddie and Missy Wheat. She learnt about hunting, being independent, and living in the great woods from a very young age. One picture of her as a child says it all. Baby Pickle was already a part of the action when she was held by a family member after a successful duck hunt. It joked that it was her first youth hunt and that she was hooked after that. Pickle earned a lot of what she knows today from her father and grandpa. These skills were honed over many years of hunting alligators, ducks, and turkeys. Her grandpa, who she called Pop, was more than just an experienced hunter and fisherman. He was also very good at making machines and knives, and people praised his work. He was once called the heart and soul of their work by Pickle. He taught them to follow the grain, which is a phrase that shows both how talented he was and how he raised his family. Pickle went from looking for a home to becoming a TV star in Season 12 of Swamp People. Her family has a history with longtime cast members like Ronnie Adams and Troy Landry, which helped get her the job. Pickle says that Troy quickly became like a second father to her. When directors were looking for new talent, they were drawn to her honest energy and lack of fear. She had grown up with alligators, but Swamp People let her really show what she was made of. The 12th season of Swamp People began with a big problem. The number of alligators had grown very quickly. Things quickly got rough as more gators tried to eat the same amount of food. These hungry snakes were no longer just hiding in the bayous. They began to sneak into nearby neighborhoods to find food. That only meant one thing. It was time to do a lot of cleaning. People know him as the king of the swamp, but Troy Landry was at the center of this mission. He was given 500 tags, which is a huge amount of work by any measure. Troy was still missing one deckhand after his normal partner left, but he wasn't going to be by himself. 3 teams were ready to go. Pickle came into the scene and quickly showed that she wasn't something new. Pickle wasn't really what most people think of when they think of a gator hunter. Troy even made fun of the fact that she looked like she should be in elementary school. She may have looked young and small, but she brought a lot of steel to the boat. She had a lot to prove at age 25, and she was ready to do it. Pickle showed that she did her best on her first day and was ready to do her share. Troy liked her right away and called her names like Shorty and Cinderella, but he never doubted her skills. They hit it off right away with jokes, respect for each other, and a shared drive to get the job done. In fact, she started calling him Papa Troy, and it stuck. On their first day out on the water, Pickle helped catch a huge 11-foot alligator. Even though she was under a lot of stress, she kept her cool and handled the situation like a pro. It wasn't just a lucky break. It was the start of a trend that would make her season unique. Pickle had to deal with tougher problems over the next few episodes. For her, one of the most memorable was when she and Troy went out to catch Freight Train, a huge gator that was famous all over the area. They were being chased through rough territory and water they didn't know much about. Test their stamina and ability to work together, but in the end, they caught the monster, and Pickle once again showed that he could stay calm even when things got crazy. At the end of the season, Troy took Pickle deep into an area of the swamp that hadn't been touched by humans yet. They called it the nursery, because they thought that big female gators were breeding there. Every catch was important because they only had one day to fill all their tags. The gators were more angry than ever, and the swamp was overgrown and dangerous. But Pickle stayed focused and sharp. She kept a sharp eye on the water while Troy scanned the shores for any sudden movement. One of the first animals they caught that day was a very violent female. This set the tone for a very hard hunt. They were pushed to their limits by tangled lines, wild alligators, and being physically worn out. But they caught an 8-foot, 450-pound female gator and then a huge 550-pound gator, which was the day's biggest catch. Things changed after that event. Pickle wasn't just showing how strong she was also showing how to be a leader. The middle of the season was when Troy gave her the keys for the first time and made her captain. That moment was very important. It showed she had won his trust and respect. Pickle had to deal with two very different problems as the season came to a close. In the episode Firepower, she joined a large-scale harvest mission on Cow Island, where she had to deal with fast-paced line pulls and gator tags in some of the roughest and tightest water. Next came gators on ice when a cold front came through southern Louisiana out of the blue. The sharp drop in temperature made the alligators move more slowly and behave in a very different way. Pickle changed how the food was placed and moved the lines to warmer, shallower water on the spot. Our team made smart decisions that paid off big time because she knew a lot about how reptiles behave. It wasn't easy for the cast of Swamp People Season 13 when it came out. It was complete chaos. Hurricane Ida, a Category 4 storm, was heading straight for Louisiana. It looked like the gator hunting season would be over before it even began. Pickle and Troy Landry joined forces with less than 48 hours to go before the hurricane hit land. It was a high-stakes race against time. Their goal was clear. They tried to fill out as many tags as possible before the storm stopped them from hunting. From the beginning, Pickle was a strong person. She moved quickly and helped Troy hit line after line with accuracy and drive. Together, they caught some real monsters. There are two 11-footers and one huge 10-footer. Pickle didn't move as the storm clouds got heavier and the pressure rose. With determination and focus, she untangled the lines, kept the boat steady, and helped catch every alligator. As the season had just begun, they were already pushing themselves to the edge. When they saw a tree shaking, it was one of the most memorable early moments. A very angry alligator thrashing through thick greenery. Pickle kept her cool during the takedown, which helped make sure the shot was accurate and the gator got safely into the boat. Here was wind and rain, but they kept moving forward. Even though the weather was getting worse, they were able to fill the boat to capacity before calling it a day. It was a crazy, but very good, start to what would become one of the most intense parts of the season. Things took a strange turn later in the season when Troy chose to change things up and gave Pickle the captain's chair. She was thrilled to be in charge and drive the boat, run the motor, and even plan the route. Things were going well at first. In fact, she helped catch another huge 11-foot alligator, but things got worse quickly. Troy joked that she wasn't very good at being a deckhand, and Pickle told him that as her first mate, he was being too harsh. The switch in roles put their usually smooth teamwork to the test. They fought over where to go, how to place the boat, and who really had control of the motor. Still, Pickle kept going and helped catch a few big alligators, including a big 9-footer. In the end, she said she felt more at ease in her normal job and gave Troy back the reins. After watching the episode, both of them had a greater respect for the other person's job. This showed again that they got along best when each person did what they were good at. A full moon night hunt was another exciting part of the season. Pickle teamed up with Troy again. Even though she said full moons scare her, she seemed a little off from the start, like she was worried about superstitions and her nerves. When her gun jammed as they were getting close to a gator, the night became very scary. She had nothing on her and was in grave danger all of a sudden. She lost her balance at one point and fell into the water, falling right on top of an alligator. The snake was caught in the lines and swimming between her legs. Pickle was stuck in queue and couldn't get away while the alligator thrashed. She later said it was one of the scariest things that had ever happened to her. Just seeing the look on Troy's face made it even worse. Fear. Pickle wasn't scared, until she saw how worried he looked. In addition, shaking the king of the pond is enough to chill anyone to the bone. Even though there was chaos, they quickly got back in charge. Pickle took a clean shot with the gun that was given to her. The excitement stayed with me for a long time after it was over. Later that night, things only got stranger. Pickle dropped her gun in the water by mistake and had to fish it out. A brief moment that seemed to back up what she already knew deep down. The hunt was cursed by the full moon. She seemed calm, tough, focused, and driven on the outside, but she was worn out on the inside. Over the course of the rest of the night, she felt frustrated, tired, and lost. She made one thing clear by the end: she would never hunt again when the moon was full, but life was going in a very different direction away from the swamps. Joshua Kippis was a new friend for Pickle. He was an emergency medical worker who had never been hunting beefew. Rebut had a deep respect for her world. Joshua had been married before and had a child with that wife. Pickle welcomed someone with open arms. She gave her whole heart to their new mixed family. In November 2022, they told everyone they were going to have their first child together. Pickles shared her beautiful and emotional pregnancy journey with her fans through pictures. One picture that stands out is of her holding her baby bump gently on International Women's Day while wearing pants and a white bra. Another person did a beautiful job of showing her Louisiana roots by standing by a bayou in a flowing lace dress and under a cover of trees. Their daughter Memi Ray was born on April 25, 2023. She was 19 inches long and weighed a little more than 6 pounds. Cheyenne's life reached a happy milestone when she got the news. She could now combine her wild swamp spirit with her new tender role as a mother. Pickle was back on the boat for season 15, though, ready to face the wild all over again. This was just a few months after having her daughter Memi Ray. It was amazing when she saw Troy Landry again. The two of them set the goal of killing 100 alligators in one day. The heat was unbearable, and the task was huge. Even though they didn't quite get to 100, having 80 gators by the end of the day was a big deal. Pickle was a very important part of that. She caught 41 of those beasts herself, setting the tone for their tough 900 tag season. Even when behind the scenes signs of weariness began to show, Pickle never let it slow her down. Troy told her straight out,